All right, and we are back. Listen, we're going to stay with the topic of gender roles. I know we touched on this a little bit earlier. We talked about deal breakers. I think all of us were kind of shaking our head, when we said, like, you have to say what those deal breakers are and know them for yourself. You know what I mean? Before you go up to somebody else and explain what know what those deal breakers are for you. And then when you go out into the world, you can kind of say, okay, this is what my expectations are. So let's go around if we can. I'm going to start, Jessica, if we could start this way, if you don't mind. Because I know you was kind of quiet on the first section here. What are some of your deal breakers? Laziness. Okay, talk into the mic.
Oh, I apologize. Laziness.
Laziness.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a deal breaker.
Cannot get with it. I think we were talking about it before. You have to have that drive, in a partner for themselves first, but also for a relationship.
Okay. Jess?
I agree with you, Jess. Lack of ambition and drive is a deal breaker for me, huge. A man needs to have a vision for himself. I feel that's what separates him apart from the mediocre men that aren't. You have different kind of men. You have alpha, beta. There's a bunch of different categories. For me, ambition and drive is the number one thing I'm attracted to in a man. And if you don't have that, I'm not even looking at you. I'm just going to be honest.
There are no deal breakers for me because I'm married, so.
Facts.
You feel me?
So we locked in.
He's already there.
If there was a deal breaker, we wouldn't be married. So.
Skip DT.
No, I do want to say this, though. I do think that no matter what, I say this a lot, but a lot of people, they think that, relationships are 50-50, but it's really 100-100. You know what I'm saying? Because if y'all are together and something happens on one end, the other person has to be willing to take on everything. So it should never just be 50-50, because if one person fails at one portion of it, then you only got 50% of a relationship. But if both people are given 100%, the relationship will always be able to stand. So that's one of the biggest things that I will tell people, that it's not 50-50. I bring half and you bring half. It should be, I'm committed 100, I'm committed 100, I'm willing to give 100, I'm willing to give 100. So it's not 50-50, it's 100 and 100.
Can I ask you if your wife is black?
She's not black. Oh. She's Mexican.
Okay.
I already talked about let me let Maya give hers. You know what I'm saying? 'Cause I talked about mine earlier.
Deal breakers is probably we disagree on our values, like what we prioritize in life, what we are passionate about. That if that's not cohesive with each other, then that's a deal breaker for me. If their values ain't similar to mine.
So when you say passionate about, so what is it like that? If you're not passionate about this, what is it this that you have to be passionate about to get through to Mayo?
This is for me would be to be of service to the black community specifically. If what you're doing in some capacity, it doesn't have to be your job. It could be maybe a side hustle. It could just be maybe a side project. But if nothing that you're doing contributes to the advancement of the black community, I'm not really interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a deal breaker. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Nas?
I would say mine is
Is your mic on?
Is it?
I think it cut off with that.
No, it's on.
Is it on? There it is. There we go. Now we got the sound.
There we go.
Okay.
I would say mine is the inability to adapt and evolve. So if you're stagnant and you're kind of okay with being who you are, and you think that's good enough, that's kind of a deal breaker to me, because I'm always trying to be better, and I'm always trying to to learn more. I'm very adaptive in any environment. I pride myself into knowing how to pivot in all aspects, or even having a self-awareness to learn if I don't know how to pivot in a certain extent. And if you're just stagnant and you're just kind of okay, just going with the flow and just being okay or good enough, then that's kind of a deal breaker to me.
Okay.
Queen, I love that.
All right. Reeves?
For me, man, it's trust. I gotta trust you, and when I say trust you, I mean because when we talk, for me, I'm at that stage where it's serious. You know what I'm saying? It's not just dating, kicking it. Nah, you get to the point of children, marriage, life, forever. A lot of people don't understand forever, and you start speaking about and learning about connecting your soul with another person's soul for eternity, you know, I got to be able to trust you. Like, I gotta know that you are you. You know what I'm saying? And I got to know that you're you, not just when I'm there, but all the time. Because it's one thing for a person to do what you expect them to do while you watching. It's another thing for them to do it while nobody's watching. You know what I'm saying? Because that shows a lot about who you are just as an individual. Because for me, I never want to be with somebody who only can function when I'm turning the wheel. You know, I want to see and I want to be with somebody who they're already living their life, and then I come in and then we live our lives together. You know what I'm saying? They already going in the direction, and with that, I have to trust you. I have to know that what you say is what it is. What you do is what it is. So I think trust, I don't know, that's something. And then trust isn't something that I've had a lot in life. You know what I mean? I haven't had many, just growing up in certain different environments, trusting the people and trusting the things around me it's not always just foolproof. You know, even the people that you're supposed to trust most, sometimes, it was a little different. So, you know, for me, somebody that I can trust, I think that would be, if I can't trust you, I don't know what I can do with you. You know, so that would be for me, trust. Go ahead, brother.
So you young brother?
You got a young brother. All right now.
Take your time, baby.
I mean, honestly, I feel like a lot of people said stuff that I also agree with. So I'm gonna try to see if I can something that hasn't been said. I think the ability to adjust, like, you know, obviously, you know, the way I am on the podcast is a certain way, but if you see me in my 9 to 5, it's a different way, you know. And if you see me, you know, when I was in college, in classrooms, it was a different way. You know, if you see me hanging out with the homies, it's a different way. And so I think for me, I have to be with someone who's willing to do that as well. You know what I mean? Because I believe that there's a time and a place for everything, you know. And although, you know, I am from Richmond, California, I do have a grill, you feel me? I do talk my shit when I need to talk my shit. I also know that there's somebody who needs to be in certain meetings advocating for certain people, and I know that if it's not me being where I'm from, they may not have that same perspective. And so my partner has to be able to adjust as well too, because if I'm saying like, yo, I want to be in this professional industry, or I want to be in this professional world, and my girl is always like she's at the club, when I bring her around these professionals, they gonna say that's a representation of me.
Yeah.
And so that could put, I mean, black people, we already have, I'm doing, you know, studies on this, black people already have a glass ceiling already. You know, glass ceiling is basically you know, when stereotypical expectations are put on us, so it limits our ability to move up. And so for me, I don't want that, you know, I don't want my partner to be the reason that glass ceiling exists. On top of the other reason that society has already put on me as a black man. So my partner has to be able to shift and go in between certain spaces and act accordingly, so that way I can still do the things that I need to do to be able to help and advocate for the people that I think don't have a voice. Because a lot of things, you know, I don't talk about what I do professionally because I try to keep them separate from the podcast, you feel me? But like a lot of times I'm the only black person in that room. That's a fact. It's not even innuendo. It's not a maybe. I am the only black person. And there are times where I literally have to yell to get my point across that I'm not letting black people go through this. Right. You're not going to do it. So either you're going to fire me or this is the way it's going to be done. You know what I'm saying? And I know that if it wasn't for me in that space, certain black people wouldn't get the opportunity.
Right.
So I need my part, but I wouldn't even have the opportunity to have a say-so if I wasn't playing my role accordingly.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I need my partner to be able to do that as well too. And if they can't, again, there's no worries for any, but you can't be my partner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? There's nothing wrong with, I remember Mayo, you had a panel with us I ain't gonna say exactly where, but you hosted a panel where there was a person, or a TJ, I don't know if you remember, and she was talking and she was like, yo, when I go into interviews, I'm me.
Yeah.
I don't code switch. I don't do nothing. And I thought that was so dope. Yeah. And she was like, no, I'm me, and I'm going to be me at all times. And if the job isn't for me, if they don't like me, then it's not for me. And I think that's dope. That's just, you can't be my partner doing that. And that's okay. I'm like, oh, she's doing it the wrong way. Nah, that's for her. That's her. And she probably wants a partner, or has a partner who is 100% authentically them at all times. But for me, the spaces that I am right now, I need my partner to be able to shift and to get into those spaces that, people like us don't get the opportunity. So I would say that's a deal breaker for me. You know what I mean?
They teach that in sociology, is we have different versions of ourselves that we present at appropriate times. So you have for me, I have my mom me. I'm going to be different. It's still me at the core, but you're presenting it's almost like modifying. It's a moderation.
Right. Just like a perspective, like a different perspective.
If I'm at work, and I work with majority white. I am the only minority woman at my job. Period.
And that's a pressure.
It's me and it's white women, older white women, and then it's all older white men. So of course I can't go in there like, "Hey, what's poppin'?" I have to carry myself in a certain manner. And then on top of that, I'm an attractive black woman, and the base is old white men with jungle fever. So there's also a way that I have to present myself. That I have to kind of dumb down who I am. Yeah. Just so I can stay comfortable. And so I 1,000% agree. We should be able to adjust. That should be. And people that don't want to adjust, that goes back to what we were originally talking about with lack of accountability and self-evaluation. I think that's very important. You should be able to adapt in different environments.
You put yourself in that glass ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. We create that for ourselves. We put those limits on ourselves. We are in complete control of who we want to be and an expectation that we want to set for. But it starts with us first. Yeah.
Right. Because the other way. Oh, go ahead. Because
you got it.
Ladies first. Go ahead. Because the other way is to assume that the world is supposed to adjust just to you. You know what I mean? And it's like there's so many different environments, and ultimately, depending on what you're passionate about, what you feel like your purpose is during this lifetime, you have some goals. Yeah. So it's like I can't assume that the world's just gonna adjust to my goals. It's like I have to show up in spaces and I have to play a certain part to get what I need out of that. And especially if it's something to serve people outside of me, I know that if I just assume that the world's supposed to adjust to me, that'd be selfish. You know what I'm saying? So I have to be versatile. I have to adjust to different spaces to be able to show up how I need to, and also to serve a higher purpose than just myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What I was going to say, like to piggyback off what you said, that's so important because being, like what you said, versatile, I love that word because that is what it is. I like you said, you're the only minority. I call myself the black girl in corporate because I've been through it all. Let me touch your hair, just the racial borderline that people don't understand. People assume that you're supposed to be the one to educate them because you're black. But I've always prided myself as well as I already have a stereotype on me. I have the long nails, I have the weave, but I'm very educated. And I'm gonna, when you speak to me, you're gonna know that not only I'm educated, but you're not gonna talk to me any type of way. I'm never gonna be that person that's gonna lower myself down because I'm a black woman and I don't want you to see me a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? Okay. I don't want you to. I don't mind being in somebody's specific perspective. Right. So I know how to adapt in all forms, but ultimately, like as black people, we have a stereotype and we have a stigma when we walk into the workplace because we're never the majority normally in the workplace unless you're in a certain demographic area. When it comes to like these higher workplaces, we're just not the majority. And like you said, if you can go into a job and be yourself, but being yourself versus being unapologetic versus this is what you're gonna get because you're selling yourself at the end of the day. So if I'm selling myself, I'm not gonna go into an interview like this. But when that first day, I'm gonna go, dressed, and talk down to the T. But my first day, this is what I have on. Yeah. But no,
I got the job already. You can't buy it.
But this is who I am. You know what I'm saying? But you have to know time and a place and a representation of who you want people to see you in a professional work setting because you're not the boss. You know what I'm saying? You're working for somebody.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's very important to know time and a place and to, like I said, adapt to where you're at and not feel like everybody should be uncomfortable because you want to be who you are versus I'm who I am, and you know what I'm saying, like this is
I think
just
a lot of people get it confused with being
Put
fake.
your mic towards
I
you.
apologize.
No, no, you good. Just like
People get so caught up in being fake, being real,
Right.
whatnot, and
'Cause
it's
what
just-
is
it's
that?
not- exactly.
what is being fake and real?
It's not even about that. It's like you guys are all saying, be adaptable in your surroundings, your settings.
Yeah, because what's most important is your character. Like
Yep.
Absolutely.
what like Reese was saying, who are you when people aren't watching?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like I specifically, and I keep saying I because I can only speak on myself, but I pride myself on my work ethic with jobs because I know that I don't like to trade my time for money. Like even in a job, I know that's what you agreed to in the beginning. This is your salary. This is what I expect from you. My time is worth so much more than my paycheck. So when I start a job, I read all the SOPs. I read all the policies. I read what is specific to me, and I use that. And it gets me a lot of time off work. And a lot of people look at me like, Nas, how are you not at work? Like, what are you doing? How do you? And I'm like, I know the policy, and I'm willing to shift to foundation. Like, I'm willing to be that. A lot of people are just, they're scared of losing their job or, but it comes with the education and the knowledge and just being confident within what you know and what you're willing to present to the person, whether you work for or the person in your everyday life.
And that can be applicable for the gender role conversation that we're talking about.
Right.
It's like when you meet someone, for me, for example, I'm a mom. I know how to cater to a man. I know how to meet a man's needs. Now, based on how you are is going to determine what you get from me, because
Right.
it's an exchange.
Right, reciprocated.
You're not just going to take from me. You're not going to suck me dry and leave me,
Yeah.
with nothing. So it's very
Yeah, you got to
across
reciprocate.
the
You got to be
board.
willing to reciprocate.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I ask y'all this? Is there, because I know we talked about, wait, you know what? I realized we talked about what the male role or what the men gender role is. What is the women's gender? Like, what is your role? We talked about men being a protector, provider, but what do you think the women's role is?
Support.
Can you define it? Emotional support?
A safe space, I want to say.
Safe space.
Because not a lot of people, and I think of course there's the stigma in the black community with black men in general, but with black men specifically because that's the community I'm in. I don't feel like you guys know that you have a safe space and that it's practiced. Like, I feel like a lot of people say that black men, we hear you, black men, we love you, black men, we're listening, but it's not practiced. It's, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of just like, it's like it's like a Black Lives Matter thing. Like when 2020, everybody was posting those black squares. It wasn't anything
What does that mean?
it wasn't anything that had a real meaning, but it was people saying like, well, I'm in support of this, and then the next week people were back to their regular lives. But I think it's so important that you have a space, like men in general, and I love to practice this because I have so many black men in my life, and I love them to the core. Like, they can do wrong, but they can't do no wrong to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a check you in private in a different type of way that people think I should check you, because I know that you already don't feel safe in the world, but you should feel safe with me as not only a black woman, but somebody that finds, like, that holds you to a near place in my heart.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of people expect their men to be emotionally vulnerable, but they want to have a dictation on how vulnerable they could be. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of women, and I won't even say a lot of women, I've seen that women say, I want my man to talk to me. You never speak to me. You never tell me how you feel. I don't want my man crying. Like, that's too much for me. And it's like,
You talking
how
heavy
could you,
right now.
how
right
could
now.
you know what I'm saying? How could you expect somebody who goes day to day with a stigma, with a stereotype on their back, like with every race that looks at a black man a certain way, and they want to come to you and be a safe space, and you have a wall here. and you have a little door right here, but then you have another wall. Like you can stand right here, but don't start doing too much. You know what I'm saying? I don't want my man crying. That's not manly. Like, you cry more than me. Like, that's something I hear from Black women that I think is unacceptable, because we all go through those, those traumas as children. Some of us deal with it better than others, but Black men have a different way that they're dealt with. And it's not a healthy one. It's not like express yourself. Don't bottle things up. That's why a lot of them will end up in bad situations, because that anger and that emotion is so built up. They're not thinking straight. Now their day to day is like, I'm just going from A to B, B to C, C to D. And it's not like, I need to figure out how I need to get from A to Z. And this is how I'm going to do it, because I have a clear peace of mind and I have people around me that care about how I feel, and that I can express that to them without them pushing their narrative on me or pushing their point of view on me and their expectation and how I should deal with it. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
or I've seen this in our community as well, Black women. They'll get that man to a place of vulnerability. He'll express it, and then a woman will use it against them.
Oh,
and that's
man.
y'all
are talking heavy right now.
My goodness.
It is a thousand.
I don't even want to.
That was heavy.
So true, and I cannot stand. Why would you use that? Like,
because we
can't
can't yell
enough as it is.
We can't
Just
yell.
Being a Black man, they have a target on their back.
On
as
their
soon as
back.
they walk out
A
the
real
door.
target.
A real one.
Like,
and that's the problem with the Black community is women are so. I'm gonna throw this in his face. I'm gonna use this against
because
him.
he did this to me. I'm gonna treat them like this.
And that goes back to the trauma bond.
Yeah.
The unhealed traumas of being in a Black society. They have pinned us against each other.
Yeah.
And it's so sad
and it's like a quid pro quo. Like, like we had the like protect Black women. Like, that's a thing, and it should be, but it's also like, well, it's also turns into a bashing. Like, well, Black men don't value Black women, and that's not true. Like, it's not.
We make it
now,
really
what
hard.
we may see in the media with our rappers and celebrities,
That's an agenda.
but it's also entertainment.
Yeah.
So it's not anything that people misconstrue entertainment versus
For reality.
because a lot of celebrities is preaching, F these men and F these women, get money, whatever. They're in happy relationships. They got kids. They're married. Like,
so I just want to address that, because I know, like, I remember you had the 5/5 podcast.
Yeah.
And you had a bunch of Black women who specifically messaged you and asked a bunch of different questions about, like, how they didn't feel protected from Black men.
Yep.
So, like, can you talk about that, like, how, I mean, y'all were making great points, but I do want to bring that in, because there are Black women who don't feel protected from Black men. So can you talk about, like, how that experience and getting some, I don't even know if you shared all of them, but I know that you shared quite a bit of questions that Black women had for Black men. So could you just talk about that and, like, how that affected you?
Yeah. So there's a reality for our entire people, right? For Black people, each one of us does not feel protected in some capacity. And unfortunately, when we don't have spaces to express that, we feel like we have to talk about our hurt over someone else's hurt. It's like, well, you don't protect Black women. Well, you don't care about Black men's mental health. It's like, okay, but it can be and. It's like Black women are protected and Black men's mental health isn't considered, and Black children aren't protected. It could be and, because it is. That's the reality. So what I wanted to do was create a space where people could say what they would ask. What would you ask a Black man right now? If you could talk to most Black men in society, what would you ask them? What are you looking for in regards to your answers? And then the same in regards to Black men. What would you want to ask Black women? Because my goal is to create stronger Black families overall. Yeah. So if we can have a stronger connection in how we communicate with each other and how we understand each other, we're way more likely to succeed and create a different narrative than what's expected of us. Like, we're looked at as baby mamas, all types of stuff in regards to our relationship to Black men. But you look at other races and other ethnicities, other cultures, that's not how they represent themselves. They don't talk about their other significant other at all in regards to something negative. You never hear about that. But with us, all our drama is out in the open. And unfortunately, like you said, it's entertainment to not just our people, but to the world. So what I seen was, it was like, women being able to express that this is how we don't feel protected. And what it is it's a cry out of, this is how we want to be loved. This is how we want to feel when we go into spaces around black men. This is how we want black men to talk about black women in the open or in public. You feel me? And then same for a black man is like, we want to be able to have a safe space to talk about our emotions and stuff. You know what I mean? We don't want to feel like we're less than because we can't handle something, or because our finances are low, or all those insecurities is what I seen when people felt safe enough to talk to me and say, this is what we dealing with. So it was a beautiful conversation. But like, I think that these type of conversations are so necessary because, again, we don't have spaces to say, one, we're capable of talking to each other and saying what our needs are, saying where our needs aren't met, you know what I mean, and be able to actually talk about it, filter through it, say, actually, I don't agree with that, or can we challenge that to make that a stronger statement, you know what I mean? Be able to teach each other and learn from each other and build each other up, because we are so powerful when we are united. That's the truth. And unfortunately, enemies made it very made it a part of the mission to break up that connection to each other. You know what I mean? That was very intentional to break up a black family. So when we can start building up a black family again, it all starts with the dating stages. All these conversations we're talking about right now, it all starts there of how we look at each other, how we look at what we give to each other and what we want to receive from each other.
So what I was going to say is that like, I really love how you guys are opening up about like your guys' roles, because I think it's so important to play that role for us. And just being transparent with the room, I think a lot of black men could say, like, going in with that, a lot of things that as black males we don't get growing up, at least from my opinion, is empathy. You know what I mean? We don't get that empathy. Me being transparent with the room, I didn't really realize until I was like an adult, maybe just in like the last year or two. Like, I'll look back, I've gone like years at a time without even crying. That's years at a time. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about not a year, 2 years, like 3, 4, 5 years. I haven't even cried. You know what I mean? People gone died. I gone buried some homies. And I haven't cried. You know what I mean? That's it literally would take me, depending on how close I was to the person, for me to even shed some tears and cry. You know what I'm saying? Because I just don't feel like what you said was a great point, because I've been through that. I'm not going to open up about this because later on you're just going to use it against me. That's a big reason why black men don't open up. And then we're thought, when we talk about being the protector, the provider, we feel like we can't give in, you know what I'm saying, because I have to be these things for my family. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that all kind of ties in, and why that role is so important to give us that safe space. You know what I'm saying? I just now started learning how to talk about the things I'm going through, and it took me almost, like, I'm 30, you know what I'm saying? It took me to be damn near 30 before I started opening up about certain things that I'm going through.
Or just realizing it.
Yeah, exactly. Or even realizing it, that this isn't normal. I think it takes us a long time before we figure out this is not normal. When we talk about our mental health and everything else that we go through, it took me years at a time, like, to really even figure out this is an issue. I kept thinking, no, I have to toughen up, right? That's what we hear, toughen up, and then I have to, like, figure it out. You know what I'm saying? And not only have to figure, I have to figure it out on my own. I'm a man. I got to step up to the plate. I have to figure it out, instead of allowing myself to be vulnerable to let someone into my space.
Get that support.
You know what I'm saying?
To be uncomfortable.
With being uncomfortable, you know what I'm saying? To be vulnerable. That's why I feel like when we talk about what the woman's role is, it's like, I'm glad you guys are talking about it and people can hear this, because it's so important for us, because we're already taught at a young age, you know, not unintentionally, but when we fall down, it's get up, son. Get up. Don't cry. You know what I'm saying? Get up. You know what I'm saying? We don't really have time for all that, you know what I'm saying? So we don't think, that's what I'm saying. I think it was a problem for myself, and I'm still trying to figure it out, you know what I'm saying? Like, I've literally gone years at a time without expressing myself, or years at a time, people dying, and I don't even cry. I just keep it pushing. You know what I'm saying?
Like, a lot of times, like, black men, or just men in general, will be held to, like, what you can bring to the table as far as financially. Like, and I think that was, I can't remember who it was who was saying, like, yo, maybe I may not be able to make X amount, but if you have the ambition, the drive, I think that was maybe if you have that drive, then we can work with your money. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was like, I can work with, we can get your money up, but if you ain't got no ambition, if you ain't got the drive, if you don't have the idea that you want to grow and
the fundamentals,
the
basics.
But a lot of people aren't taught that as men, as young black men. I know for me, like, it was just growing up, for many of it was what financially can you bring to the table, because you gonna need to be, and that's why I said to define what provider meant, because oftentimes when people hear provider as men, we hear money.
Monetary.
We hear money, like provider meant money. You know what I mean? And it's like, again, the way 40 million people were unemployed last year. You know what I'm saying? Right. So that means, and half of them were men.
Right.
So what do those men do when they can't do what they were told to do to be a man? They kill themselves.
Yeah, can I answer that? And when you look at the history of our people in America, we're not going to even get started on the diaspora, but when you look at the history of our people, our worth was based on what we could produce.
Yeah.
When can you name a time where we ever had a break from that? Right. When did we ever had a time to sit with each other, black men and women, and say, damn, we've been through a lot. You know what I'm saying? We never had that time for over 400 years. And for us to think that that trauma is not being transformed into something and showing up in other spaces, it's just been passed down, especially if our parents weren't capable. If they were in survival mode, that's how they were handling it. You know what I mean? They didn't have time to process. They were focused on surviving. So when we look at, I think what has to be added to the conversation too is how we look at masculinity and femininity. Mm-hmm. When you talk about the role of a woman, or the power of a woman, really is what it is. The power of a woman is to be a creator. A power of a woman is to literally be able to transform a man's burdens. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could lay this down here, because naturally, I'm not, I specialize, you know what I'm saying? Women, we specialize in our emotional intelligence. We specialize in the heart and in the spirituality of humanity. So men can come to women and say, men can come to women and set their weight down and be able to unwind and be able to unpack and to go back out there. Because a masculine man who identifies as such, they want to provide, they want to protect. That's in their nature. They want to do that. And if they can't do that, they don't feel as themselves. You see that when men can't provide financially, there's something that happens with their confidence, not just because of what other people expect of them, but how they view themselves. Like, how am I useful? And a woman, if she can't be useful emotionally, if she can't express her emotional intelligence, if she can't show off her skills, just like a man can't show off them skills, they're gonna look at each other and feel insecure. Mm-hmm. You have all these other things showing up in a relationship. It's because you can't stand in your femininity. He can't stand in his masculinity. You have women wanting to show up more in their masculine because they're like, all I had to do was survive. All I had to do was provide for myself. Roles that weren't initially mine naturally. And in men, same thing. I haven't been able to stand in my masculinity because I've been in situations where I couldn't provide. So I had women having to provide for me. I've had certain things having to happen to me that took away from how I view myself as a man. So when people can get more in tune with their masculine and feminine energy, we all have both, but there's a different balance of each, right? But when we can get in tune with that and feel empowered by that, it's not a weakness for us to be emotional creatures. Mm-hmm. And when there's an imbalance, we're looked at as sensitive, we're looked at as crazy, all types of things. It's like, no, there's just an imbalance in how I'm able to show up in my femininity. But when we can stand really in our power, we're undefeated.
Oh, you are talking
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on what you first said. There's a narrative that's being pushed about black women, and that narrative is, we're strong, we can handle anything. We don't need to feel. Our job is to just do it, right? And that is the imbalance of masculine and feminine energy. Yeah. Divine femininity needs masculine energy.
Needs it. We need each other.
Sound masculine energy needs feminine energy. There's just a complete imbalance. You've got us having to overcompensate for the lack of the men's emotional ability to cope with their inability to provide and lead, right? And then we've got us, we're out of balance because we've got to be rah and I can handle it all. Where is the balance? Where is the point that we say, I would love a man to listen?
Right, it's more.
I would love a black man to be like, baby, I got this, and then I would be lay
that makes you want to do.
Lay your head on my lap and let me caress you. Lay all your burdens at my feet so I can help you.
Right, we feel more equipped to handle the world. Yes,
that beautiful, and that's. Black men and women are so much stronger together. Yep. Yeah. And they are causing distension. They, the enemy, like you said, Maya, are causing that separation because they know that there's power in numbers. When we're so much stronger together as a community.
And we spend the most money.
Man.
Like that's a fact. So it's like
we can't receive the agenda that's being pushed since slavery, because you guys got to keep in mind, Black people existed in America before slavery.
That's a fact.
Yes.
That's a fact.
We were conquering
Do your research.
shit. Hello.
Okay.
Slavery was not our beginning.
Absolutely not.
That we were kings and queens running shit, make empires. You know, that white lady, what's her name, Jane something? She always promotes Black women are the original mother of all people.
Yeah.
You know, we are the original creator.
fact.
There's so much power in us being unified. They don't want that.
No.
And here we are just sitting here
'Cause it's-
feeding into that narrative of Black women are you know how many Black men I know that refuse to date Black women?
Yeah.
You know, like they're too strong.
From their trauma.
Unacceptable.
You know, from their trauma. It's like self-hatred.
Unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Again, everybody has their preference, but when you refuse to because of a stereotype, unacceptable.
There's a difference between being open to love and saying and we are the only race of people that do that. We're the only race of people that will say, I will not date a Black woman. Mind you, white girls love our Black men. Hello.
Can I pick y'all brain on a question off of that? When you say Black men don't want to date like another Black woman, right? Like, how much do you think an upbringing by a mother would affect that?
100%.
100%.
100%.
So what are
Just
y'all
like
thoughts
Black
on that?
women's relationship with their fathers contribute to what type of men they seek in the world.
Because that's a trauma.
Yeah.
That's a trauma projection. Like what I see, and that's why I was saying like, I like to provide a safe space for Black men because I have Black men in my life. I make that conscious effort because the way I was raised contributes to how I am now and unlearning the things that I went through from a single Black mom. So I know, and I have a younger brother, and I see the way that he's dealt with versus how I'm dealt with. So it's like, even though there's a stigma, like Black men's, you know, there's Black moms, their sons can do no wrong, the way that they're handled is as if they're like projecting their hurt from the father that wasn't there. So it's like, well, you need to be the man of the house, and you put a lot of responsibility on a child. Like people don't understand. We don't develop until like really 20s, and that's on like the beginning stages. And you're putting all this responsibility on a child to be the man of the house because there's lack thereof, or you know whatever reason that is just needed. And that definitely, because I've had Black men friends who have refused to listen to me because the way that my tone may be reflects the way that their mom used to talk to them. And it's unintentional on my part. It's unintentional on my part, but it's just, you know, it's just the way that I talk. Like a lot of Black women do speak the same. We do have the same type of tone or demeanor. And it's not like a conscious, like I'm trying to put you down. It's that I want you to do better, but I know that your capabilities and I see where you're lacking and I'm trying to push you. You know what I'm saying? And it's not necessarily that it may not be a healthy thing to do, but you need to educate me, or you need to express that to me that it's not, versus Black women, they're too much, they got too much attitude, you can't tell them nothing. In reality, it's like we never had a type of the dialogue or like the tone for you to express that to me, for me to even know that what I said or how I said something was bothering you. So it's like now I'm defensive because I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't mean that. You know what I'm saying? Like I love Black men. What are you talking about? And there's a disconnect. There's just a constant disconnect because it's emotional projection versus, and it's everything gets lost in translation. So I definitely think that Black men deal with Black women versus how they were dealt by Black women who just don't have, you know, like our parents, we're all healing. I would say this generation the most, we're healing from our parents' trauma.
Facts.
And our ancestors' trauma. We are making the conscious effort to heal from that. And that's years. That's years of changing the narrative and changing the perspective of Black people, because we're all educated in this room, but a lot of people don't see us like that. No matter what suit you put on, no matter what room you're in with who, you're not seen as equal as, you're seen as less than, and you have to work harder than to be seen as equal as. And it's like, that's a burden we all carry. So I feel like a lot of times we're more looking at whose burden is worse versus how can we help each other, and you know, this is where you're lacking.
God
Can you
damn,
pick up
dog.
here, and this is where I'm lacking. Can you pick up here? You know what I
Right.
mean? So I think that's
Right.
the biggest problem.
Supposed to be the journey
and that's
together,
where the
right?
roles come in.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's not necessarily what's the word?
Femininity.
Femininity. I want to make sure I'm saying it right. And masculinity, yes, that's important, but a lot of us are really just out here trying to survive. And a lot of us are we weren't dealt the same cards as the average family. Like the average salary of Black people is very low. It's poverty.
The net worth is very.
The net
low.
worth is
bro.
poverty. You know what I'm saying? Like
Below poverty.
a lot of Black people die in debt. You know, you can't. We don't have life insurance. We're not taught the basics,
fund.
like life insurance and 401ks and Roth IRAs and things. That's basics. That's like things that white families teach their children for longevity. We're not taught longevity. We're taught of
Instant gratification.
instant gratification and survival, because a lot of things that we're buying, they're not contributing to our retirement. We're like, a lot of people say they don't
Social net
want
worth.
to work past 50, but their actions are not lining up with not wanting to work past 50. It's like, all right, I'm gonna make a play here, I'm gonna make a play here, but I gotta have these J's. I'm not willing to give that up. I gotta, you know what I'm saying? I gotta have this weave and I gotta have this wig. I'm not willing to give that up. And I don't feel like you should give up your wants, but you need to make a conscious decision as what can I do more as a person to elevate and complement my partner. So we're working together and not, this is what I'm trying to do in my life and this is what you're trying to do, and we need to figure out how we're going to work together. This is what we're trying to do. And this is what I have to, this is the plan I have to fab for us. You know what I mean?
About our history, right? It's at a certain point, it is our individual decision
Responsibility.
and responsibility
Yep.
to heal that. Because I grew up in a home where, like you laid it out perfectly. Independent Black woman, single mom. My stepdad went to jail, right? I didn't have that prime example of what a father should be or how a man should treat a woman, right? My mom was a man hater. When I say man hater, God blessed her with 5 grandsons. She had 4 daughters. God's like, no, you gonna figure this out.
Right. We got some lessons for you to learn.
With
Yeah.
these men, you need to figure out. My mother was abused by her grandfather, by her father, my grandfather. My grandmother was. So I came from that generation of, independent Black women don't depend on a man. They will hurt you. They are the enemy,
Yeah,
right?
right.
But that's not the case for me and my sisters. So that's an excuse. At some point,
It's like a scapegoat, but it's also like that's important, because I also think Black men see that a lot of Black men grew up in single mother households, so they see Black women like, well, my mom did this, she didn't ask for help, so why are you asking me for help? You know what I'm saying? And
Damn,
really,
I didn't even think about that. That's crazy.
and really, it's like you don't know what your mom did or who she asked or how she got it. Really, she didn't let you see that part of her, because that was her responsibility as a parent. You know what I'm saying? Like, she buckled up and made that conscious decision. Like, I need to provide for my children because I don't have no other choice. But Black men see, like, because I won't just say like Black single mothers, because single parents do the damn thing, but from what I've seen, Black single mothers do the damn thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had a Black single mother and I had a big birthday every year. You know what I'm saying? I never went without. I'm so grateful that I had that, but I still don't see, like, I see everything she went through and I'm like, I don't want to go through that. I don't want to take on those tribulations, like, because they're heavy. So it's like, I get that Black men see, like, well, I saw my mom do it. She didn't complain. No, she didn't complain to her child. You know what I'm saying? Because there's no reason to. What could you do as her child? She didn't complain to you. But it doesn't make it any less harder, and it doesn't mean that she didn't break.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
She was taking on both roles.
Right. And I think also people have this misconception, like Black single mothers some of them have a misconception that they are both. Like, I'm the mom and the dad. You'll never be a father. And it's not to discredit you, but a woman can never teach a man how to be a man.
Talking.
And
Heavy.
you know what I mean? Like, my dad could never tell me how to be a woman. He could never tell me how I need to be a woman to a man, because he's not a woman. He could tell me what he may require from a woman, but he can't tell me how to be a woman. You know what I mean? And he can't speak my role for me, because he doesn't know that role. He's never played in that role. He's not that role. My mother can teach me what she, like from experience, but she can tell me how a woman is and, what a woman should be, because that's the role that she's in every day, in all aspects of her life.
But it's still modifiable, right?
Absolutely.
Because like you said, you were raised by a single black woman.
Right, absolutely.
As I was. And I took what my mom...
I learned from her mistakes.
Exactly.
I learned from
that was
everybody's
something
mistakes.
I pick and chose what traditions I wanted to carry
Absolutely,
on
100%.
and what things I didn't agree with based on what her life looked like, right?
Right.
So it's our character is comprised of two things, our family genetics and the environment that we grew up in. But at any given moment, we can choose. I don't necessarily agree with the environment that I grew up in, so let me try to change that narrative, exactly what you said.
Right.
I can pick and choose the kind of woman that I want to be and the kind of man that I want. Or I can choose to be a bitter black woman based on
my parent,
mom and my dad, and
or
how
my
they didn't work
friends
out, or
and
my
what they
friends,
think,
or
yeah,
whatever, or my grandfather and what he did. It boils down to decision, and accountability and self-awareness. And if you're lacking that, you will not have a viable relationship of growth and elevation. You will still be trauma bonding. You will still be, I need this and I want this, and you'll still be just looking to take instead of also giving and making that balance.
You'll
Right.
still look at yourself as
Yeah.
a victim.
Yeah.
And
Every
the hardest-
relationship.
The hardest relationship
Yes.
to have is with yourself.
Yes.
It really is, because it's like you're your biggest critic. It's so easy to be down on yourself, but it's like you said, like you pick and choose what you wanted to learn from your mom. I made it at a very young age, because I've always been an emotional being, but I recognized that, and I used to think something was wrong with it by the environment I grew up in. I'm like, well, maybe I should be a little harder. And I started to be that, and I didn't like who that person was. I'm like, this isn't really me. This is someone who I'm not adapting to be, but I'm forced to be in this role, and I don't like it. So I feel like a lot of lessons don't have to be learned firsthand. A lot of lessons you can, what I'm saying? Like, there's things that my friends do that I just have to see, and I know that I'm going to make the conscious decision to not go there. Now, it's not saying it couldn't happen to me. It could never be me. But as a conscious decision maker, it could never be me. I'm not going to make that conscious decision or irresponsible decision to do X, Y, Z, because I know the consequences that come with it. And I'm not willing to deal with that on a conscious level. Like, I did this knowing the outcome. I thought it might have been different from me, because, everybody thinks they're different. And the outcome, I could sway the outcome to be this, and it didn't become that. Now you got to sit with that. And a lot of people don't like to sit with the decisions they made, because you can only point the finger so much. And like they say, like, when you point one, three are pointing back at you.
That's a fact. They said a wise person learns from the mistakes of others. A fool learns from the mistakes of his own.
And some mistakes are too costly, and I don't have, a lot of mistakes are very expensive to pay, whether it's emotional,
Lifetimes.
financially, mentally, and it's like.
But we gotta take a break for the time, but we're gonna come right back to it. So we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll get back in there.